Hello and welcome to episode 3 of Masters in Marketing. Today we have Tim Brown, the founder of Hook Agency in Minneapolis, Minnesota. When it comes to all things Google's and web design, this guy is an absolute stud. Tim used to be a marketing director for another agency prior to starting his own agency. He also went to school for web development, so he's got a great background there. Recently, Hook Agency actually decided to niche specifically with contractors only, which is only going to benefit their customers even more. So I'm very excited to see what happens there. They do great work, honestly. 4.9 rating on Google, doing awesome stuff. They're even partnered with Dimitri at Roofing Insights. And he's a critic of a lot of marketing agencies out there. So if he's backing them, they're legit. Tim, man, thanks for joining us today. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much, man. It's an honor to be here. I'm glad to be on one of the first episodes.
Let's go. You were the first invited too, my friend. I told you, I was like, hey, this guy's doing great things. We got to get him on. So I sent that invite to you first. So thanks for joining us today. So Tim, did you know that you were always going to get into like web development and stuff like that? Or how did you decide to go into school for web dev?
Yeah. I'll throw in here that we're going to go into all the best tips today. We're going to do our absolute best to give value. I'm super excited about it. I actually originally just wanted to be a graphic designer back when I was a teenager. I think my dad was like, that's not a real job. And I've heard a lot of those sentiments, but to me, ultimately, graphic design is still baked into so many of the things that we do on a regular basis that, fooling around with Photoshop when I was like 9 years old and stuff like that has been a very good background thing that I've known how to do for a long time. It helps everything in marketing to know how to design a little bit.
Completely agree with that. And then, so you get out of school, you went to school for web dev, right? Yeah. And then you decided you went and became a marketing director for another agency. Yeah. What did you learn there that you brought into Hook Agency when you started your own company?
Yeah, well, that company had a very good website presence where they're ranking for some pretty big terms, things like e-commerce SEO and things that are like money makers for them. And there's some key principles that they had going and that I helped, honestly, in about a year's time, actually, I think it was 10 months, we doubled the amount of leads that they had. So they already had some really good things going on. And then they had never had a marketing director before. So having somebody doing this 40 hours a week was a pretty big, push. And the things I really learned were you got to have that landing page for the service, right? But you also need to have accompanying content. A giant guide on e-commerce SEO fed our e-commerce SEO service page. And so I've just been rolling with that principle for my own company. And I started to do that, on the side when I was still at that company. That was part of my agreement that I was allowed to do that, and started to do that for other companies. So I learned that principle of like having pillar content on your website that's more educational paired with a service landing page. Honestly, I learned a ton of things. That might be one of the biggest things. And I was audacious, man. I asked people that were crushing it. I would Google something that I wanted to rank for. I'd talk to the person who was winning and I'd be like, hey, can I give you $300 an hour to just like pick your brain a bit about this? And
that's cool.
Even though, hey, no one's going to turn down $300 an hour. And then like for the most part. So it was kind of cool. I got a lot of really good information that I applied. Having great information is half the battle, but I was one of those people that spent 20 hours extra a week, even on the side of my job, just doing whatever I knew to do in giant amounts. Yeah. I've probably made more mistakes than other people because of that. But yeah, I was a big make a lot of mistakes, learn a lot of things guy. So yeah, that was a big influential time. The other piece besides the big pillar content was about getting links to your website from other websites. And so I always hammer that. It's a very simple concept. You can write for other websites and get a link back to your website. ideally they're somewhat well-trafficked websites. And a way to do that now in a very, can I say unfuckwithable future?
Go for it.
Unfuckwithable way is to go on Help a Reporter Out. So if you Google that, Help a Reporter Out, Haro is the thing. You can pitch the media. They ask questions on there. You can pitch, you can essentially just share what you know on there. Do that 3 to 5 times a day. One or two of those every week is going to drop, and you get a link back to your website. And these are often from pretty substantial websites. We've gotten links for clients on like readersdigest.com and stuff like that.
Wow.
And I literally got in the physical Inc. magazine because I pitched on that. So like you can get really crazy links and from really authoritative websites back to your website. And that is a huge thing. Google says, oh, this website's important because Inc.com linked to it. So
yeah, that's huge.
And those one of those things that like it's hard to scale. So a lot of marketing agencies, a lot of SEO focused agencies don't do it for their clients because it is hard to scale. But there are ways. There are ways to do it.
Great resource though, for sure. So helpreporter.com. Make sure you guys are checking them out. I mean, if you're getting into things like Inc., man, that's a very powerful tool right there. So
that would be an outlier. That would be an outlier situation, but like
so don't be expected if you're a roofing company out there.
That, but like even the lower level websites, if you get like a couple of those a week, it's huge for your Google visibility if the other parts of your SEO are doing well. So
yeah, that's great, man. So I wanted to talk about this. All right. So how important is making a significant investment into your website as a roofing contractor? Should people, because I know it's a lot of these websites, right? If you want to do it right, it's a big investment. How important is that?
I would say at the beginning, I mean, I think I kind of like let people down a little bit. Like, I get them off the hook a little bit related to like, if you're under 1 million, just because like there is a point where you just need to be scrappy. You just need to get something out there. You need to get a Squarespace website out there. You need to get a WordPress theme, whatever it happens. You need to get something out there. And I don't think you should spend as much money as we cost. Like I to a certain point. So, but a website for a contractor, at the beginning, it's a business card. And at some point you have to turn it into a machine. Ideally, I've seen people get by without a great website. I've seen people door knock and then, they do whatever to get business, whatever they happen to do. And people can go to that website and apparently they still close deals, even though their website doesn't necessarily tell a great story, doesn't look super professional. But I'd say it's much harder, and the things that need to be right. And you just need to look professional. It doesn't necessarily need to be the most modern, crazy design, but looking professional is the difference between, it's not even just leads. Sometimes it's the difference between like having to be the bottom price versus it's okay. Like that company's quote is 12K, ours, or, whatever. And our quote is 15K, like on a, let's say a residential roof. Like to be the higher quote, you have to have things that kind of justify that. Are your
play the part, the part, right?
Does your logo look modern? Do you look legit, basically? So to me, it's important at a certain point because you don't want to have to be the lowest bidder every single time. And that's really important. That's what I'm having Dimitri on Wednesday. We're talking about the true cost of Angie leads and stuff like that. And I think the real cost is it drives your price down and you actually, you're lowering your customer service because you can't justify it because you're selling every roof for 9K or whatever. You know what I mean? Like you're going to the bottom of the barrel on the pricing. And that's the real cost of doing shared leads. You have to go like, beat them out on their price. And that actually.
So would you suggest to not utilize tools like HomeAdvisor and Angie?
So yeah, my real take on that is don't be completely reliant. And if you are reliant, do your best to build other key systems. I probably would use Angie Leads. You
would use it. You would.
I probably would. And people hate me for that too, because I put it up on YouTube and people are like, don't ever tell them, they don't cancel your thing, like whatever. I get it. And I understand that I might have a bad taste in my mouth, but I would do it for a little while. But I mean,
In the
obviously,
beginning, it might be the best bet, though, to be honest. In the very beginning, when you have
that's
nothing
what I'm
going.
saying. That's what I'm saying. So like that, but ultimately there's a lot of hustle there, and it's for different niches. Cause I've like landscapers love Angie Leads or Home Advisor or whatever. Handymen love it. Like, and if you can really run the shit out of like repairs, maybe you might like it too. And turn those into replacements or something like that. But I think for most contractors, that's really not a good long-term viable solution. And then they can just crank up the cost year after year. And basically anything where you're sharing leads, I think it always kind of drives down your quality over time, from what I hear. And I do see the average cost of roof is usually lower.
I agree with that. What do you think? What do you think about Google Local Services?
Ooh, big fan of Google Local Services.
Yeah, you like those?
Yeah, I'm a big fan. I think everyone should be on there. With some exceptions, some places it's so crowded. Some markets are just so crowded that it hurts. But
yeah, what do you think of that? I mean, like, because I'm out here in Denver, man, and there are so many companies on there.
You guys just have a unique situation. That's an unusual situation. Most cities don't have such a crowded space on there. A lot of cities, like you could be one of 5 every time that gets up there on Google Local Services. And if you are in one of the more common spaces where it's not quite as crowded, like even just like biggest principles are just call people right away, like respond as quickly as possible to these leads, crank up your budget even past where you think like it's actually going to spend, because it usually doesn't spend that high, and just be really comprehensive.
I noticed that too. I noticed that too, that it doesn't usually go that high anyways, right? You said like, I think it's a weekly budget or whatever it is.
They're just kind of like, I think they like to see, this person's
willing to spend
a ridiculous amount. Like, and I think they give you higher placement for that. I don't know if that's
is that one of the biggest aspects, do you think, on the placement is the budget? Because it seems a little sporadic on it.
Yeah, I think like reviews, I think quickness to respond, and cranking up that budget all the way. There's not that many hacks, although we're all kind of looking for hacks for Google Local Services.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, it just comes down to like how crowded it is in your market a little bit, but longevity. So if you have a good account on there, don't get that shit canceled. Make sure you keep that, like, it's the longevity of the account too, I think. So like if you got
that would make sense.
Yeah.
Because it's interesting, because one thing that I liked is when Google My Business added the get a quote button on the Google My Business, and people can just request that quote directly through the Google My Business. But what's interesting is when you look at that, they keep track. So it will say like, what percentage of requests do you respond back to? Right. And then how long does it take? So I think they say if it gets under 90% of the people, like if it gets under 90% of the people we're taken care of. So even if 10% we're not taken care of or below, you start to kind of get in a gray area where they might turn it off on you. Right? So
or
they're
just
recording all that.
penalize you, like
exactly.
Their customer, I get that their customers also add accounts, but their user, they want to have them to have a positive experience, the people requesting, right? So they want this. That's a pretty big deal, like, and if you weren't there right away, I mean, it's kind of like, think about what their motive is. Their motive is that everyone will use their system for contacting contractors, probably. So
yeah, but if you guys don't have the get a quote button set up, make sure you guys are doing that. But like Tim was saying, anything with Google, if it's going directly through Google, make sure you're responding, and make sure you're responding in a timely manner. Otherwise, you could be in trouble. On the SEO side of things, is it a similar realm where I know you said, oh, hey, million under, do not spend a ton of money on your website. Get out there, knock some doors, maybe set up your Google local services. Is it the same thing where after $1 million, that's when you start to look at investing in SEO services, or what do you think there?
Yeah, it's hard to get good SEO services for cheaper than a certain amount. If I was a contractor, I might go for like a smaller local marketing agent. So we're niche, right? And we do something that's kind of aggressive and intense. Like we call ourselves like relentless, persistent SEO. You know what I mean? In combination with, we also like do edits on people's websites. We make new pages where we do completely custom design and development alongside of our SEO stuff. We think we're really good. And we're a little bit more expensive because of that, probably, right? But in the meantime, if you could get like a local, smaller, like a freelancer or somebody that's doing decent stuff, like the primary activities are around blogging and keyword research, as well as some technical SEO, like meta titles and descriptions, making sure that you're targeting the right things. It always kind of comes back to, are you targeting the right things on your website? I think you should be starting it from the very beginning. As soon as you put up that first Squarespace website or put up that first WordPress theme. And I'm trying to find ways to be useful to super early contractors too, because I want them to get to us eventually. Right.
Yeah.
So like I've toyed with little, like, how can I seed the pot early? Because it also comes down to, it's when you put out that first domain, when you put out the website on your domain for the first time, and then when you get your first link to that website, that's when the clock starts.
So keep the domain though, no matter what, right? Don't switch
always
that
keep
domain.
The domain.
don't switch the domain.
Yeah, and if you're starting now, like put roofing in there or whatever your main service is.
Yeah.
But it's time. It's time. And it's so annoying. It's so annoying if you're new, because you can't hack your way to the top. I mean, there's ways. Nick, I mean, peek behind the curtain, there's ways. I've got weird, like, we can't scale it, but like I've done stuff with new domains. I've like found 5 old websites and hooked them up like old car batteries to the back of a website. Like, but it's not necessarily as safe. And ultimately what you want to do is you want a business that's you want the longevity. So keep the domain, stop switching domains all the time.
Domain authority, right?
Yep. Domain authority and time. And it's really comes down to the amount of links and how authoritative these links are. So getting your first like 5 good links just starts the timer. Do you know what I mean? And like, it still takes time. It still takes years.
What do you think of these things online where it's like, you spend $150 a month and it says it's an SEO package? What is that something? So these new people, you said the freelancers, is that something that they should look into, or is that something that might be such a big waste of money, even though it's a small amount of money?
Yeah.
You ever seen those?
A lot of those, I mean, like a lot of those types of things, you really do want somebody that understands English as their first language running your SEO, because so much of it is keyword focused, right? Like it's about the topics. And that's why, like, your company and our company, Nick, being contractor focused, just understanding the topics and really 100%. Getting like what the topics are is important. That being said, a local freelancer would be better, in my opinion, than a person who cold emails you out of the blue. And even the people that are getting SEO right now from us or whatever, get those emails and they're like, your SEO is broken and you rank for nothing. I get those emails. They're like, dude,
everybody gets those emails.
Yeah. Like we would have to pay $100,000 a month to Google to get the amount of traffic that we're getting, like through organic. And we still get those emails that are like, your SEO, you rank for nothing. You failed. So, like, just disregard those emails. It's usually nonsense.
What do you think is more powerful then? Do you think Google Ads, or do you think SEO, or do you have to have the combination and have those two married?
Yeah, I'm a big SEO fan. So organic stuff, because you can do it in the off season and still, like for instance, if you wanted to go learn about SEO right now in Minnesota and it's snowing and whatever, it's cold. I don't think it's snowing today, but you could sit there for 4 months and just blog and turn up the heat. And then by spring, you're starting to get reap some rewards. Whereas I think Google ads, I love them and they have their own beauty, but it's hard to store value, right? It's just the leads and that's it. I
There's
like
no value that you get to keep that goes
you don't
goes back into your business.
Yep. I like that kind of long-term investment. I like the investment mindset of SEO where you can just keep on banking basically money in your website by building out the content, building out the links, and then long-term. But it's not an either or really. It kind of comes down to, do you need leads, more of them now, or are you really trying to build for the long term? And there's a lot of kind of questions in that I think you just kind of got to ask yourself, your company, do we need leads now, or are we trying to build this for the long term? And usually for roofers, it's a mix of both. I want to build more and I want to do PPC. So if there was one, from my point of view, if I needed leads and I was going from, let's say, 500,000 to 2 million, I needed leads and that was like really important. I got sales guys sitting around. I'd do PPC. Ideal scenario, you kind of already have some other, we have heavy referrals, you door knock, you do other things, and you can use SEO in the meantime to grow. But I'd say either or until like 2 million. And then I think at a certain point, 2 or 3 million, you want to do both. You really want to start to do both. And it's up to you about how needy your sales machine is currently, because you do need leads.
Yeah. Well, it's tough too, because I think, everybody wants results immediately, right? And that's just the way we are now in society, immediate gratification. We want results now. We want leads now, and so I think that's kind of where that PPC can kind of take place. That way you're generating results. When you're working with somebody in an SEO standpoint, or, if a contractor is looking at another agency to partner up with on the SEO side of things, what's like realistic expectations to see results? Because I want to make sure everybody out there knows that, the SEO, and maybe you've heard this before, is it's going to take some time and there's going to be a game plan that's going to follow. What does that look like? What are the expectations for results?
Yeah, I tend to see if there's a website that's been out there for a couple of years, I think a reasonable, hey, we're seeing an upward graph on traffic and stuff like that, is like 6 to 9 months. 9 to 12 months, I usually say, for like significant increase in leads. And the unfortunate part is, if your website is new and you haven't done anything on SEO before, that number goes out to completely unreasonable, like to pay an SEO agency like ours. That's why we don't do it. Like, we can do SEO for super early companies, but it's like a 1.5 to 2 years realistically.
If it's a new domain, you're saying?
New domain. Yep. New domain. So that's where it kind of is tough, because then sometimes people come in, they're like, we got the money. And you're like, but I know you're going to be mad at me a year and 1 month.
And that's not worth it.
And I just don't want those. I really want more clients out there that love us.
They're praising you. That are praising you, right?
Yeah, exactly. So that's where it's like, it's tough, because I want to help small business, like super early businesses, because like it is important. I think SEO is huge, but yeah, it's tough.
So what about this? So like, let's say that, we followed your lead, Tim, and we're like, all right, hey, I was a newer company. I invested in a freelancer. I had some stuff done, had the website done, some SEO stuff. I still got my domain authority now. So it's like, I've been in business for 2 years. Now, let's say I want to update my website. Am I going to lose all the efforts that I put in there and just spent time on?
Definitely not. Not if you make sure that the web design and development agency that you're working with transfers all the content and does redirects. So those are the two things you need to make sure. Transfers all the content, makes sure that all the same pages exist on the new site, and does redirects from the old URLs. The link in the top bar are going to the new ones. So those are the only things you need to make sure of. You might take a little dip in the meantime, and then it's pretty positive in the other direction. But you got to kind of comes down to, is it going to make more of the people that are coming to the website turn into customers? Because a poorly designed website might inhibit people from becoming customers.
So you've been playing. Oh, go ahead. Keep going, man. Keep rolling with it. Keep rolling. You're good.
Oh, I was going to say just that if the website is like at 80%, it's 80% good. Like, I don't necessarily, watch marketing agencies that every time they're obsessed with redesigning. Like it's like almost like these companies that like their main revenue source is websites or something. Like, it's kind of, they're obsessed with redesigning. Every time you move agencies, you got to do a redesign. Do you really need to do a redesign, or is this just like, oh, it's not our website, so we need to change it? Like, if your website is at 80%, keep the same website and just do SEO on that. You don't need to redesign every 2-3 years. Like, to me, a website should be good for 5 years. That being
Is that
said,
kind of the lifespan? You think 5 years?
I think ideally, but I think that really what it comes down to is like, we do fairly simple website design. So we're not doing anything that's like really, it's kind of the difference
Like
between
based off the trends, kind of, I guess.
Trendy.
Yeah.
If it's super trendy, then it's like 2 years later, that thing's out of date. You know what I mean? So you got to watch trendy websites. And this is why, even though our clients try to push us towards those like weird, fancy things, we like slow them down a little bit. We're like, does this accomplish the result of more trust and more leads? And you kind of got to like hold on to that in your mind and kind of like challenge each other, the people working on the website. Does this accomplish more trust and more leads? And if it doesn't, maybe we want to keep it a little simpler and focus on like the things that are going to create trust and leads.
What would you say? Like, is there any tips on, the formula of what makes a good website? Yeah,
we've got a winning website formula. I'm going to give you. There you go. To me, it's actually, I like to keep things simple. I want to keep it simple because I'd love to see all contractor websites have these basic things in place, because it's what a customer would want, right? One, strong visual call to actions throughout the site. So what is my next step? What is what is the obvious next step on this website? You might say it's a little pushy, but most people are coming to your website not because they want to read all about your company history.
They need a roof.
They need a roof, and they need it. And they honestly don't care that much about you, just to be real.
No.
They're looking for that button, and that form. So just make it visual, make it present, and make it all over the website, including like the end of interior pages of the website. We like to make a big call to action there. It's pretty. And then also on the top bar of your website, a big button on the top right. And then all over like the key service pages, maybe you just lead with the form. 2, testimonials and other trust factors. So I'm going to go look at your Google reviews anyways, but maybe just throw those up on the main page too, so I can just see them as I'm scrolling by. Put them on every service page. I say include an image of the person who left it, because otherwise I don't care. Honestly, I'm like,
you don't connect with it as much.
And I actually show the 5-star icon, show where that review was left. Testimonials mean nothing in 2021, 22. We're basically all inoculated against testimonials because we all assume everything's bullshit, right? So you want to include where that thing was left, the 5 stars, everything. 3, emotionally persuasive images and headlines. So make your ideal customer the hero of the story and help them imagine themselves working with you. Hey, honestly, all most roofers have to do is think, like, just act like you're talking to a prospect. Most of these roofing owners were a great salesperson at one point. So just stop. Maybe don't let other people write the copy on that website. Then just write it yourself and write it how you'd talk to an actual prospect. Because
that's good, yeah.
like these guys are amazing at sales. You're amazing at sales. Okay. You're amazing at sales, but you're letting someone else write the copy on your homepage. Write the copy. I'm telling you, just get in there and like write it like you were talking to a real prospect. You are good at sales. Marketing is just sales at scale. So maybe just take a new shot at the copy, because copy is more important than the look of this site. It's more important. It just basically do the same thing that you're doing in sales on the website. And then an emphasis on search engine optimization throughout the process. That just means make sure there's the content in the right spots. Just make sure there's a lot of content on each of the service pages, 500, 700 words. Make sure that meta titles and descriptions are written at the end of that website. But in general, just make sure there's a lot of content, more than you feel comfortable with. I get it. Most people don't read all of it, but put it on there anyways for Google's sake.
Do you have any tips on tools or resources that can keep people up to date on changes within Google? Because I feel like it just changes so rapidly.
Am I allowed to throw a link on our website in here? Because I just
do it. Absolutely.
If you go to hookagency.com/blog, I just put out a blog post about the November 2021 Google algorithm update. And we always, whenever there's an update on Google, we always do a blog post about it. So every single time. And I usually talk about like what changed, why it changed. And they're usually not that much different than each other, just to be honest with you. Google's always trying to make their website more useful, basically. And as long as you're doing that too, you'll generally be on the right side of these algorithm updates and more content, more links from reputable sources.
So make sure you're checking out Hook Agency on their social media platforms. That way you're up to date on all their blog posting and everything like that to stay up to date with these Google trends. Is it pretty frequent? Am I right there? Is it pretty frequent with their updates, or is it not that much? Or how often
it feels like they're more frequent than ever. Like it used to be like once every couple of years. You remember, because they're if you're in marketing, their name stuff is like the penguin update, or the hummingbird update, the panda update. By the way, I've got a rap song called Panda that's about that.
Yeah.
If you ever
you got it on YouTube, or where do you have the
rap song? I'll send it to you. You can link to it in the bottom.
Yeah.
Google algorithm updates. I did it like 5 years ago. It's really stupid. I use drones and everything. But I nerd out on this stuff. It's fun. But yeah, Google has like 5 of them a year now, whereas they used to have them one every couple of years. So usually they're a little bit smaller these days, and usually they're just basically trying to like weed out spam, which for most roofing companies, you are not spam. You're a local business. You're doing, original content on the website. So in general, you shouldn't be negatively affected by these, but yeah.
So as we start to bring this in and close, is there any other tips or advice or words of wisdom that you want to leave roofing contractors with when they're thinking about marketing, when they're thinking about web development, when they're thinking about SEO or anything like that?
Yeah, I'm going to go with, I think, what are your best 2 lead sources this year? If you're already cranking on some lead gen, what are your 2 best lead sources that you've closed the most business from? Double down on those this year. Don't chase new phantoms. Don't sit around thinking you're going to buy some software that's going to make this all magically work. Don't think HubSpot's going to fix it for you. Don't think whatever is going to fix it for you. What are the real lead sources that close the most money in 2021? How could you double down on that in 2022? That's my biggest thing. If it's bleeding you dry, like in the case of for some people, Angie leads, I don't know, then maybe reconsider, but like really, don't have that shiny object syndrome that we all often do. And
we all do.
Marketing.
We all do.
Stick with the
We all
same
want that,
thing.
yeah. We all want the
Stick
magic
with it.
fix or that magic sauce or that secret sauce.
Yeah,
But
and I
hey,
mean, there's always little bits of secret sauce, but it's not a meal in and of itself.
Yeah, 100%. And like you're saying, top 2 lead sources, double down on those. But now to be able to do that, you need to be tracking your stuff. So
Yes.
one thing I want to be saying there, have a CRM system, track your leads, label them properly, right? And that's going to allow you to make strategic business decisions on your marketing efforts. Now, Tim, what's the best way to get a hold of Hook Agency if people are interested?
Just go to hookagency.com/contact, say what's up. But yeah, we are Hook Agency all over social, and yeah, Tim Brown Hook Agency if you want to connect.
And you have a podcast as well.
Yes, Hook Better Leads, and
Hook Better Leads.
We are just really pushing into roofing guests, so we'll have a lot of awesome roofing guests over the next 6 months here.
Let's go. All right, Tim. Well, hey, man, thank you so much for joining us and being episode 3 of Masters of Marketing.
Thank you so much for having me.